Hi, I'm Ryan Bridge, and I'm excited to host a new podcast called Bridge Talks Business with Milford, where I'll be talking about, well, business, obviously. Every week, I'll be joined by one of Milford's team of analysts, fund managers, and financial experts to cover key business events. It'll be your go-to for insights on the markets, business, and the economy, both here and overseas, as we dig a little deeper into the business week. Join me for Bridge Talks Business with Milford. Subscribe on iHeart or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss an episode. All discussions are informational only and should not be considered financial advice.
You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB.
Let's continue our build-up towards the Bledisloe Cup test this afternoon. It is a real pleasure to be joined by a true Wallabies great. Joe Roff was one of the stars of a golden era in Australian rugby, without doubt one of the best wingers in the world, while also being able to play in the centres or at fullback if required. Between 1995 and 2004, he played 86 test matches for Australia, scoring 244 points. He played in 3 Rugby World Cups, making his Wallabies debut at the 1995 tournament, winning the World Cup in 1999 and coming off the bench in the 2003 final against England. He played against the All Blacks, as I say, 17 times, scoring a try in that iconic match of the century in Sydney in 2000.
Pass to Roff, there it is for Herbert, just short. Regan has his hands on it, he was tackled, Roff gets over. Great advantage by the referee, and the Wallabies incredibly draw level.
And then he also scored in the return match in Wellington a few weeks later.
Latham, who's up in the line, they keep it going. Larkham, Joe Roff for the corner. They've got another one. The wingers have got them both.
Yeah, that was Joe Roff's 47th consecutive test match, eclipsing the record set at that time by Phil Kearns. After his playing career finished, he earned a Masters of Arts, Politics, Philosophy and Economics at Oxford University in the UK, and has held several CEO positions. In April of last year, he was appointed President of Rugby Australia. And in something of a statistical oddity, he lost the first 7 test matches he played against the All Blacks, but then won 8 of the next 10, the last of which was the 2003 Rugby World Cup semi-final. Joe Roff is with us. Joe, can we start with that stat perhaps? 7 losses in your first 7 against the All Blacks, then 8 wins from 10. Did it just sort of take you a little while to get the hang of beating us?
Mate, that was one of the nicest introductions I think I've ever had. Yes, it was a strange old introduction to playing the All Blacks. I remember. We lost, and then suddenly the dam broke, so to speak, and then we had a little bit of success against, and we had some of the great Bledisloe tests of all time through that period. But I think around that time we just had a very balanced squad that had a lot of self-belief, and in those 80th minute turning points, we won the 1 point Bledisloe's, the John Eales kicking a goal or Todai Kefu scoring on the bell, and so it was a very special period for the Wallabies team around that time.
I want to talk about a couple of those test matches in a moment specifically, but in general terms, Joe, how much did you relish locking horns with the All Blacks during your time in the side?
Oh, I loved it. It's Bledisloe week is the best week in rugby in my view, and it's just so very special. Last night, if I can just rattle off some names, we had some dinner with these names: Gregan, Phil Waugh, Dean Herbert, Matt Cobain, Justin Harrison, and Justin Marshall joined us later on in the evening too. And it's such a special event in rugby, and to lock horns with the All Blacks. We were talking last night, and George and I were saying, we remember speaking to Carlos Spencer once back in 1997. We hadn't beaten. As you said, we'd lost and we'd lost and we lost. And he just spoke. I think Carlos said something like, "The problem is that you guys don't believe you can beat us." And when someone says that to George Gregan, you can see his eyes like narrow in, and it became a very intense moment that I removed myself very quickly from. But that's the sort of intense competition and rivalry, but it's in such good spirit at the same time. So wonderful. I was also caught up yesterday with Andrew Mertens, and it's wonderful that we all know now we shared a really special part of the Bledisloe Cup history, and there's more to be created today.
Absolutely. Well, it's good to know Carlos is to blame for what happened from '98 through to about 2003, but we can take that up with him another time. Some of those names you mentioned, Joe, and some others too: Gregan, Larkham, Horan, Herbert, Burke, Tune. Man, what was it like playing in a back line with those guys?
Yeah, I think it's only with the benefit of hindsight that you realise how special it was. I mean, you know, for me, you think about it because I played at the Brumbies, and so I spent my whole career both at Super Rugby and Test level playing outside Gregan and Larkham. So if you can't make a good fist of it playing outside those two, you can't make a fist of it playing anywhere. So I was very blessed in terms of the people that I played with and through that time. But I think there's a lot of people talk about team culture, and it's really hard to define. But it's just that motivation to make yourself and the person around you better, time after time after time. And through that period, there was that real, that real spirit that of just improving and getting better and better. And so we went from. I look at the Argentina blowout last weekend against the Wallabies, but we had one of those in 1997, and then 2 years later we won the World Cup. So rugby's a strange sport like that in terms of if you can just get it right culturally, and you get that self-belief, anything can happen.
Are you able to articulate the influence that John Eales had on that team?
Yeah, look, Ealesy was he was a quiet, assured leader. Nothing ever really ruffled him, and just a very calm leader. If you remember the test, we're playing out at Acor Stadium this Bledisloe, and one of the most famous tests was the first time a Bledisloe was played there. And if you remember that one, that Jonah Lomu scored in the 84th minute to win the game, but 110,000 people out there. It was just, they called it the game that came down from heaven. It was an amazing test match, but that was the one where we were down 24-0 after 8 minutes, and we're all standing behind the goal line. And Ealesy we were all thinking, well, this is going to be a big score today. But Ealesy just said, hey, we haven't touched the ball yet. Let's just touch the ball and get into our game. Once we get the ball, we're back in this game. And it was just a measured assessment of the situation and very calm. And then we ended up coming back, and it was all even at half time, and then ended up being one of the great test matches. So, you can't underestimate the impact of quality leadership within the team, and Ealesy was certainly one of those leaders.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's just imprinted on our minds, that test match, but also the one in Wellington a couple of weeks later with you guys winning 24-23. You got to try in each of those test matches, Joe. John Eales kicking the winning penalty right at the end to break our hearts and retain the Bledisloe Cup. There was something special about the two matches in 2000. Do you remember them vividly, even, quarter of a century on?
I do. Yeah, it's you see a big giraffe-like second rower kicking match-winning penalty goals. You don't forget that in a hurry. That's a special moment in time, and just a strange beauty about our sport that opportunity just presented itself, and our captain, who with his big high cap boots stepped up to kick a match-winning test penalty goal in a test match against New Zealand. These are the things that Bledisloe Cups create, these sporting moments, and I think this upcoming series and this game are going to present some really special moments.
Yeah, we're looking forward to them. If we look at your current role as President of Rugby Australia, Joe, how can you best impact the Wallabies as President of Rugby Australia?
It's a really good question, and it's a great honour, and it's a great privilege to be the person that tries to, I guess, share my love of the game and how much how good the game is. If I can give you an example, in 1995 I played my first test, and I was presented with my cap by a guy you might remember called Michael Liner.
I do. Yes, now, of course.
Of course, and so Michael gave me my first cap, and this year in the change room after one of the games, I was able to present his son Tom Liner with his first cap. And Michael was on the Zoom because he was in England, but he was watching in. And so for me to be able to pay it forward and welcome Michael's son into the Wallaby family was a very special moment and a very special reminder of what the Wallaby family really means. So that my role is about, in some ways, just sharing and inspiring younger generations who are well, let's be honest, they're fickle and they get choices in terms of codes that they want to play or sports they want to play or what they want to engage in, is for me to be able to share with them and say, no, this game that we love and that we play is very, very special and you should get involved in it because it's so great.
Of course, another of your former teammates, Phil Waugh, is CEO. So what is the nature of your contact with Phil Waugh? What does that relationship look like?
Yeah, it's quite, we talk about some of these games, these great games in the early 2000s, and then you look at the structure of Rugby Australia, and I'm privileged to be in the role that I am. I'm in. Daniel Herbert's the chairman of Rugby Australia, and Phil Waugh's the CEO. So, and one from Queensland, one from New South Wales, one from the ACT. We were chatting last night to say there's something. I think there's. Rugby's a business, and we get that, and both Phil and Dan have really deep business experience, but there's something about having lived experience in the game to understand what our community is like and what our community wants from the game. And so, they do Phil and Herbie do the heavy lifting, but they just care so deeply about the game that I think we've had some challenges over the recent period, and I know New Zealand Rugby's experienced some challenges as well. But we have to step back from that and look at how healthy the game is on a global level, and just make sure that what we're doing in our local markets is altogether is in the best interests of the game. Yeah,
terrific approach. And just to finish, to bring it back to today and to next week as well, what do you want to see from the Wallabies in these two Bledisloe Cup matches, Joe, to give you confidence that you are on the right track?
Yeah, look, I think Joe Schmidt's all about the basic skills. He once famously, one of the English players when he was coaching Ireland, said that Joe Schmidt's teams do the things that take no talent really well. And Joe took that as a compliment. It's about getting the basics right and the disciplines. And, we know that if there's turnover ball or those sorts of elements, that's when New Zealand's... I think New Zealand are playing a wonderful brand of rugby. Without reminding your listeners of the Rugby World Cup, I would say in that game I was really impressed because New Zealand went out to win that game and South Africa went out there not to lose that game. And I think the endeavour of this All Black side is something we need to be very mindful of, but it's going to create a really entertaining game tonight, and our team just have to have the disciplines not to provide the opportunities that New Zealand always and invariably pounce on and make you suffer for if you fracture in those critical moments. So it's doing the basic things very well. This is an Australian team that is building. There is self-belief within the change room. Joe Schmidt's got an excellent coaching team around him, and I think it's going to be a very special test match.
Great to get the chance to chat to you, Joe. You broke our hearts on several occasions over this side of the ditch, but there's nothing like Bledisloe Cup rugby to get the blood pumping and rugby fans on both sides of the Tasman. Thanks so much for taking the time for a chat this afternoon.
Mate, thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Joe Roff, there he is, President of Rugby Australia. What a player.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.